Hey everyone, so this is going to be my part one of my discussion on a book I'm going through called Drive: The Surprising Truth to What Motivates Us. And I decided to put it into parts because there are such important things in each segment. Um, and so I want to extract just one core study, scientific study that was cited in this book that I think is very, very insightful. When you read books like this, it really just, there's so much stuff in it that it will just blow your mind. But let's get to this one, okay? So, in this book, about a little over halfway through, they cite this psychological study done. Basically, what they do is they take college graduates and they separate them into two groups based on what goals they've set for themselves. Uh, one group is the graduates who have set very, I guess you could call it superficial goals: money, getting rich, having success in life in some way or shape, material. And the other group was college graduates that pretty much set purpose driven goals: impact the world, make an influence on the world, educate the world, help the world. So, big, influential, intrinsic motivation. And so, what they did was they let these college graduates out into the world for a year. And then they tracked them down after 1 year, and guess what they found? It's very, very interesting. Basically, they found that the ones that had a purpose driven goal pretty much were very fulfilled, they were happy, there's low levels of anxiety, low depression, and those who had fulfilled their goals were happier. And the other group, the materialistic motivated group, had a opposite reaction. The ones who achieved their goal were not happier than they were when they were in college. They were about the same level. They weren't worse off, but they were about the same level. But also, they were shown to have higher levels of anxiety and depression. And that's a very interesting thing. Now, obviously, this study only partakes on one specific scenario, the ones who achieve success. Um, but again, it may happen later on in the book, but so far it's only cited these potential areas. And let's just talk about that for now. I think it's very interesting. Um, so if you have a materialistic goal in mind, I think a lot of us do, and that's your only goals, you may have to re-question what you're doing. It may not be a wrong thing. In fact, a lot of great people have had materialistic goals, but oftentimes they've also had purpose driven goals, or later on in life they've changed after achieving their materialistic goals, or they've had both goals at the same time, or they've had um, just a very strong foundation in terms of life lessons, living as a good person, great community. Uh, they love what they do. They all these things add together so that material things like that won't affect them as much. Examples are people like Bill Gates, who his first 30 years was spent growing Microsoft, and initially people who don't really dig too deep think, oh, those first 30 years for him to become the richest man in the world, he was driven by making money, becoming the richest person ever. That's not actually true. If you study it, people who are billionaires typically they have some incessant, ridiculous level of interest in some sometimes very weird thing, um, that's often ends up proving very economically bountiful. So in Bill's case, it was computers and programming and what that can bring with software. And I think he, from what the biographies and information I've read about him, he was definitely more interested in um, creating this product and the vision behind it and building this business rather than the money behind it. And he did not think it would ever become as big as it would. He thought it'd be a very niche product. Um, and so, again, you really have, if you are considering material things, that may not be a horrible thing, because material goals will in fact set your life up for um, certain levels of happiness as well, and well-being and financial security and all that other stuff. um, but other than money, there's all sorts of material things out there. I mean, most of them are related to money in some way, shape, or form, because money can buy a lot of those things. But also, there's stuff like women. Uh, Women's a big one. Maybe drugs, or maybe ego, or being known as the best person ever. Stuff like that. Again, these goals, with the proper mindsets and the proper foundation, they can drive you to impact the world and grow your influence, maybe your your potential as a human, uh, tremendously. And like Bill, that can potentially be a great thing, because later on in life he started thinking about philanthropy, and now he's dedicated almost all of his money, and sort of created a foundation where Warren Buffett can send all of his $60 billion to impact the world through vaccines and saving as many lives as possible, and creating a more equal playing field for everyone, and treating everyone in the world as an equal being. So that's a huge undertaking. And set if people don't set goals like building businesses and creating these products and so forth, and achieving that influence and wealth, then you can't really make that impact for the better when you choose to. You can make a much smaller scale impact, and that can be just as great, but it's not as big. In addition to that, a lot of great things come from setting big goals, and some of it is very materialistic, but again, at the same time, it can have great impacts. Uh, Setting materialistic stuff isn't always, setting quantifiable stuff is not always a bad thing. If you want to set a number like um, 1 million children saved this year, that's not a bad thing. So, um, that's all I really want to say about that topic. And so, long story short, it's food for thought to marinate in. It's not something that I can give you, any viewers out there, some definitive, conclusive piece of advice. If I did, it probably would be flawed. In fact, probably most people giving advice based on these conclusions are probably somewhat flawed. But it is something to marinate about. And ultimately, I do think that uh, as far as human happiness goes, it's a complex thing, and oftentimes there's certain priceless things, moments with your family, certain events and relationships that money cannot buy, and certain things involving the brain chemistry and hormones and chemicals that keep your body running, that have been built in and programmed into us based on our bodily fluids and our neurochemistry and so forth, and our brain, that make us happy and feel well, um, off of somewhat non-materialistic things, completely non-materialistic things. Think of the Dalai Lama. He's living a very sort of non-materialistic life, meditating all day, and he's laughing and if you see any of his talks, he's always laughing and cheerful. And think of Mother Teresa. Vow of poverty. A vow of poverty was taken by her. Still, great person at the end of the day. Gandhi, great impact. Um, and so all these things are it's food for thought, really. And I think ultimately, if you want to create uh, the best scenario, oftentimes it's a lot of factors adding together. Often a lot of them have to be somewhat prerequisites, and they are not uh, related to money at all. Stuff like friendships, communities, things that you're passionate about, hobbies, um, making other people happy, growing a family, being with loved ones. Um, so, again, if you like this video, leave it a like. And if you thought this was great food for thought, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. Let you know when my next video comes out. And thank you so much for watching.